Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. So as you can see by the gray mats we have behind us that it's not blue anymore. We're actually in our new location. So let's kind of discuss what the experience that we had going from a relatively small studio. It was our first owned studio, meaning it's our own studio 24 hours a day, to our current one, which we also have. But if you hear any noise in the background, so I've got some of my higher level guys doing a little training session here. But we went from our humble beginnings where we were operating out of a Taekwondo studio. We did that for, first place was a year and a half, and then we did another one for about maybe another year and a half or so. Then we did about Then we did about 6 months out of my house while we were waiting for our first studio that was supposed to be our home to be built. And then when it was finally built, and we were there for only 6 months because of some misunderstandings between the landlord and KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. So we actually went and just got our own studio finally, which was our first Flower Mound, Texas campus. Now we're in our second one. The second one is much larger. We have 3 mats instead of 2 now. We've got full bathrooms with showers. We've got 3 showers now here. We've got a weight room. We've got lounges. It's pretty decked out. So for those of you who are looking to run your own studio, just kind of want to do a part 2, right? Because I did one, I think it was 10 things you need to know if you wanted to run a studio. Well, let me add a few more things here based on the experience here. So first thing is that make sure that if you're going to be building out a location, make sure you have adequate financial resources and make sure you have adequate time. So I'll give you an idea. We actually signed our lease, let's say in maybe September or October of 2021, and we actually took over the suite on December 1st of 2021. We didn't open until July 2nd of this year, 2022. In fact, our original planned day of opening was going to be February 1st. Figured we'd take about 2 months to build out. Well, that got pushed out to March 1st, which happened to be when we had to get out of our previous location. So I thought, okay, that's still perfect. I was thinking that we might have a 1 month overlap. So guess what? I'm paying rent in 2 different places at the same time. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind, is that while you're building out your location, sometimes you can work out a free rent situation, but sometimes you cannot. For us, our free rent situation went the month of December, January, and February, and then March 1st was when we were actually paying rent. So us moving in on March 1st into this new location would have worked out perfectly. However, we ended up being delayed about another April, May, June, 4 months. 4 months. So 4 months that I'm paying rent and we're not in the studio to welcome new members to continue to pay the bills. But here's the thing. KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu is very lucky. I mean, you've seen our Thanksgiving videos and you see how our members are with regard to helping out the veterans that are having a rough time, which is why we were able to put together 300 baskets for Thanksgiving. So we're going to be doing that again this year. It'll be, I don't know, maybe the 7th or 8th year in a row that we've done it. And every year's been bigger, but I digress. We have a lot of members who kept their memberships active. Now, I did have a handful of members that actually took their memberships off while we were in the building process. We were training out of local home studios. There were some, 2 of them aren't that far from the studio itself. So we were just trying to make do with what we have. And then also, we're training out of my home studio, which is about 20 minutes away from the studio. It's not even in the town of Flower Mound. And many members did make the trek out to my home studio to train, but others just couldn't fit it in their schedule. And like I said, we did have several members that actually put their memberships on hold. Now, I completely understand them doing that. Really, why should they keep their memberships active if we're not providing the location that they signed up for, right? But the point of that matter is that unexpectedly, we had a very high number of students that continued to pay their membership, even though the convenience factor wasn't there anymore. And even though, because of that, they weren't able to make it to the studio, some of them didn't make it in at all during that whole time, and others, instead of training their normal 3 days a week, they might have been down to once every 2 weeks. Just because of the fact that we had to have much smaller classes. But thanks to them, the school has been able to survive. Because here's another thing. Always expect that the cost of your build out is going to be much more than expected. And there's no exception to that rule here. So I'll give an example of what happened. We weren't able to get our certificate of occupancy from the get-go. So our hope was to kind of build the place out over time, but we needed to clear out everything that was in here, some walls and all that. Well, there was a plan checker for the city, who shall remain nameless, who incorrectly assessed our drawings. And another thing too, you need to have drawings, so you need to hire an architect to do the drawings, to stamp the drawings. We also needed a structural engineer because we were making some changes in the plumbing. But this particular plan checker had evaluated our space incorrectly, and our architect had said that it was perfectly fine with the amount of bathrooms we had, but the plan checker decided he wanted to change our space and say it was part office, part gym, part jiu-jitsu studio, and as a result required that we had more bathrooms. So because of that, we had to hire a plumber, and plumbers aren't cheap. Our plumbing bill came out into the tens of thousands of dollars to get what we wanted to get done, and it was tens of thousands more than we had planned to have. Electricians are very expensive too. The trades will cost you a lot of money, plus your materials. We decided not to go with a suspended mat for this location. Well, we did have one in our front mat 3, and that's our private dance studio. It's for our private members, our premier members. They train there. We did continue with the suspended mat there, but to do that here would cost us a whole lot more because lumber prices are much higher than they were 3-4 years ago when we built our other studio. So that's another thing you have to think of. First of all, is time, right? And when you're not open, you're not necessarily generating revenues. When your costs start to overrun due to factors that are not controllable by you, that's another thing you need to look at. I had an assistant who was on staff who I kept paying, even though a lot of the stuff which she would be doing in the studio was not being done because she wasn't really needed. But I kept her on staff. And it's kind of crazy. The end result is it's worth it because we'll be here for at least another 5 or 10 years so that we can make back what we've lost and build up and continue to spread the word of KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. But at the same time, it's an experience that you go through it once and you're like, man, and let's say KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu here in Flower Mound. This is our Flower Mound campus, right? And let's say our Flower Mound campus grows beyond expectations and we have to do this all over again. Not looking forward to it. But here's the thing. I'm probably going to be looking at it much differently. Instead of having an overlap of about 3 months, I might have to have an overlap of 6 months or more, which means that I'll be paying double rent for many more months at the same time. The new place, which would probably be larger, cross our fingers, right? It'll be larger, which means we'll be paying more rent. And especially in this market in Texas, it's a state where everybody's moving to, so that means housing prices going up, commercial real estate prices going up. It's not what it was 4 years ago. So there's a lot of other factors to think about. Now, you could move to an area where the space is cheap, but chances are if the space is cheap, your location may not be really good. So you have to take that into account as well, which means that you're going to end up spending more money on marketing and advertising. So that's another thing to think about. And I mentioned that in the last video, which you'll see right up here or here, right? So you can watch that video, and this is a good one. This is a good part 2 for you to kind of see what the original factors that you need to think of are, and they're still valid. But depending on how nice you want to go in your studio, you're going to need to factor in the money, and it's a lot of money.
That makes sense.
But when all is said and done,
Just gonna like try and
we're talking about for this
bring it
second
back here,
location,
okay?
6 figures, which is more than I had expected. Thought we could do a lot of it using a lot of help that we have in the studio, and we did utilize a lot of help in the studio. But even furnishing the studio, we're not done furnishing yet. That's still an ongoing process. But thankfully, we did have a contractor who was a member. We did have somebody who had electrical connections who was a member. We did have a member who runs a landscaping business who could help us run through the permitting process. He was a member. Right. That in a lot of places, a lot of schools, you don't have those types of resources available to you. And like I said earlier, we had a lot of caring and generous members who continued to pay their memberships, even when they weren't expected to. And I wouldn't expect them to, but they did. And thank God for that. So running a jiu-jitsu school like we do here at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu, it's a dream come true, and it's the best. I can honestly say this is the best job I've ever had. However, it was extremely stressful at one point, and it's a good thing that we run this school like a business. Even though Master Dave Kama and I, we don't take salaries to do this, because we don't really need to. But at the same time, most people who run a campus or who run a school of their own, they live off the income the school provides. So if you're not bringing in a substantial amount of revenue, it's very hard to build to a big school, which is why a lot of schools are small and they run on very tight budgets. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good school. Like I talked about earlier in other places, the most important thing to me is the school is clean, and this school is spotless. And mats they're much bigger now, so it takes more time. I have to come in with more time. I have to allot more time to clean the mats than I used to, because the mat is much larger. So that's another thing to think about as well. But I don't want to discourage you. In fact, I want to encourage you. Just know what lies ahead when you decide that you want to open your own school and you want to expand past your garage, or you want to expand past working out of an existing martial arts facility and just taking whatever time slots they have available. Right? To get to the point where you can run 24/7 out of a place, it's a big step. And then when you take the next step to grow your school, grow it to the next level, it's a giant step. So keep all that in mind, and if this is something you want to do, focus on it, keep at it, keep working at it, and be sure to set aside more money and more time than you might have thought about, because things do go unexpectedly slow at times. So I hope this kind of helped you in your journey. And you can feel free to come visit us at one of our locations. We've got Flower Mound, Texas, which is the one I'm sitting in. We've got Irvine, California, where Master Dave runs that studio. And we've got Austin, Texas, where Ken DeSilva runs that for us. So feel free to drop by, say hi, come try a class, and come visit us also at KAATAROJitsuOnline.com, where we have all our curriculum and our videos showing that curriculum. And it's a great resource for you to learn Jiu-Jitsu. And for those of you that run schools, come see us. We do have affiliate links that we can hook you up with so that you can have your students enroll, and you can make and help your business as well to have the KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu curriculum at your disposal, as well as helping your students with their training as well. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.